Anya had grown up believing that life was fair, that love would arrive gently, like sunlight streaming through her window in the morning, but reality had a way of shattering dreams without warning. Her family's small home, once filled with laughter, now echoed with worry. Her father's business had failed, her mother's health had declined, and debts piled up like shadows she could never outrun. Every day, Anya tried to hold her family together with a smile, pretending she wasn't terrified of the uncertain future looming over them. Then came the proposal. Though proposal was too gentle a word, it was more like a decree, delivered with precision by her father's desperate plea. She was to marry Roman Volkov, a man whose name carried weight across the city, whispered with both awe and fear. The Volkov family was wealthy beyond imagination, their empire sprawling across industries from real estate to tech. But Roman himself had a reputation that made people uneasy, cold, unyielding, and ruthless in business. A man who would crush anyone who crossed him without hesitation. Anya's heart sank the first time she saw him. Roman Volkov did not smile. He did not speak with warmth. He was impeccably dressed, his tailored suit as sharp as his gaze, eyes dark and calculating. He measured her as if she were nothing more than a chess piece, a delicate pawn in a game she didn't understand. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, clipped, and commanding, carrying an authority that left Anya trembling, and not from fear alone, but from the sheer weight of the unknown. The wedding preparations were overwhelming. The Volkov estate itself was a marvel of modern architecture and classic grandeur. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and every detail reflected wealth and precision. Anya wandered through the hallways in a haze, trying to imagine herself living here, under the watchful eyes of a man she barely knew. The palace-like rooms made her feel small and fragile, like a bird trapped in a gilded cage. Guests arrived in extravagant cars, dressed in designer outfits, their laughter ringing hollow to Anya's ears. To them, the wedding was a spectacle, a display of power and prestige. No one seemed to notice the silent anxiety behind her carefully composed face. No one saw the trembling hands that clutched her bouquet, or the way she fought to steady her breath as Roman appeared at the end of the aisle. Roman's expression remained unchanged. He walked with precision, his gaze fixed ahead, as if Anya were invisibly or perhaps beneath consideration. The ceremony was flawless, the vows spoken with perfect etiquette, but devoid of emotion. When they were pronounced husband and wife, a polite applause filled the air, and for a moment, Anya felt utterly alone. She realized that her life had been exchanged for security, for the illusion of stability, and yet, at what cost? The first nights in the Volkov estate were chilling, not just because of the grand stone halls, but because of Roman himself. He slept at one end of the enormous bed, distant and immovable. There were no words of comfort, no warmth, no touch to bridge the chasm that separated them. Anya often stared at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the city outside, wondering if she would ever know the man behind the icy mask. She missed the simple comforts of her old home, the creak of wooden floors, her mother's laughter, the scent of fresh bread from the corner bakery. Yet, life within the Volkov estate was not without its peculiar rhythms. Anya began to notice oddities in Roman's behavior that contradicted the cold persona everyone feared. Sometimes, late at night, she would catch him lingering by the library, poring over a worn leather notebook. His brow would furrow in concentration, his hand moving with care as he sketched delicate patterns of flowers, landscapes, or sometimes intricate architectural designs. These private moments hinted at a hidden depth, something Anya couldn't yet define, a softness he never showed in public. Then there were the smaller, inexplicable acts of kindness. Once, a bird had flown into the estate, panicked and fluttering against the polished windows. Anya had expected Roman to dismiss it with irritation, but he had calmly opened a window and guided the creature back to freedom. Another time, she noticed a small tray of her favorite pastries appear in the kitchen, carefully arranged and still warm, though she hadn't mentioned them aloud. These glimpses of humanity were fleeting, almost imperceptible, yet they sparked a mixture of curiosity and cautious hope in Anya's heart. Despite these moments, the coldness was overwhelming. Roman's words were sparse, his interactions with her often brusque. He spoke of business, strategy, and family expectations, but never of feelings, never of love. Anya had tried to engage him in conversation, to laugh at jokes she imagined he might enjoy, but his polite nods and slight smiles felt more like acknowledgement than genuine connection. She began to fear that she had married a man incapable of affection, a man who would always remain distant and untouchable. Yet even in her despair, Anya discovered a strange resilience within herself. She refused to let fear dominate her entirely. She learned the routines of the estate, the hidden nooks where sunlight streamed through glass panels, the quiet gardens behind the mansion where she could breathe freely. She began to carve a small corner of comfort in the midst of grandeur, finding solace in solitude and in the tiny signs of life around her. Her interactions with Roman, though limited, slowly began to change as well. She learned to read the subtle language of his gesture, as the brief flicker of interest when she mentioned an art exhibit, the way his eyes lingered on her when she sang softly in the music room. She realized that behind the icy exterior, there were moments of vulnerability, glimpses of a man shaped by experiences and burdens she could not yet understand. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once, the notion that perhaps, somewhere beneath the cold, a heart could exist. As weeks turned into months, Anya's fear of the unknown remained, but it was tempered by a growing sense of fascination. She began to hope he, not recklessly, not with Nitel de Macaron the expectation, but quietly, stubbornly. She hoped that the man she had married, the man who seemed incapable of warmth, might reveal himself in ways no one else had witnessed. And in that hope, fragile yet persistent, she found the strength to endure, to navigate the lavish halls and the lonely nights, and to face each day with a mixture of trepidation and determination. It was in this delicate balance of fear and curiosity, loneliness and tentative hope, that Anya's journey truly began, a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, about power, and about the man who stood silently at the edge of her life, enigmatic, formidable, and unknowingly capable of changing everything. Months had passed since Anya had entered the Volkov estate, each day blending into the next like snow melting into cold marble. She had grown accustomed to the quiet, to the polite distance that defined Roman's presence. Yet, in that monotony, subtle changes began to emerge, small gestures that hinted at a man beneath the fatal de Section 8, a man who was capable of feeling, even if he rarely let it show. It began with a quiet evening in the library. Anya had been browsing the tall shelves lined with leather-bound volumes, lost in a book she had discovered tucked away in a corner. Roman was there, as he often was, a silent figure at the massive oak desk. She had learned to move around him without speaking, observing, noting the faint furrow in his brow or the way his fingers traced the edges of the pages. That night, though, something shifted. He glanced at her, not with cold detachment, but with a brief flicker of curiosity. It lasted only a heartbeat, but it was enough. Encouraged, Anya dared to speak. That author, a broken bar, she has a way of making the smallest moments feel enormous, she said softly, not expecting a response. To her surprise, Roman looked up fully, his dark eyes locking onto hers. She notices things most people ignore, he said, his voice lower than usual, almost contemplative. There was a pause, a weight in the air that neither of them could name. For the first time, Anya felt a connection, and not through grand declarations, but through the shared acknowledgement of subtle beauty. Over the following weeks, these small interactions became a fragile rhythm. Roman would ask her opinion on a piece of art, or pause near her as she played the piano, listening with an intensity that made her heart flutter. He began leaving notes in unexpected places, a single line from a poem, a reminder that she had left her favorite tea bag on the counter, a brief good morning tucked beneath the tray of breakfast he had prepared. Each gesture, though understated, was a revelation to Anya. This Mana was so untouchable, so impossibly was revealing fragments of a humanity she had almost forgotten existed. One rainy evening, the kind of night where the estate's marble halls echoed with the sound of droplets on the windows, Anya found Roman standing in the garden, hands in his pockets, staring at the sky. She had been pacing, unsettled by memories of her past life, the fear that she had married into a cage. But seeing him there, his profile softened by the dim light and rain, something shifted in her chest. "You go out here often?" she asked, her voice tentative. He didn't answer immediately. Then, slowly, he said, A broken bar like the quiet rain changes everything, even me, sometimes. The confession, minimal as it was, struck her. Roman Volkova, the man she had thought incapable of softness, admitted vulnerability. It was not a grand gesture, not a declaration of love, but it was enough to break something within her own walls. Anna realized that love could begin in the smallest of moments, in the spaces between words, in shared silences that felt like secret conversations. From that night, their lives intertwined in ways neither had anticipated. Roman became attentive in ways he had never been, noticing when she was tired, silently covering her with the blanket, bringing her tea before she even realized she wanted it. They spoke more often, their conversations evolving from polite exchanges to discussions about dreams, books, and the world beyond the estate walls. Anya discovered that Roman's coldness had been a shield, a defense against the world that had often disappointed him. And slowly, through her presence, he began to lower that shield. Their first real moment of vulnerability came one late winter evening. A storm had trapped them in the drawing room, the fire casting flickering shadows across the walls. Anya, nervous yet emboldened, confessed a fear she had carried since childhood, that she would never be loved for herself, that she was destined to be admired only for what she could provide or endure. Roman listened quietly, his dark eyes softening in a way that stunned her. Then he said something that made her heart stop. "I don't admire you, Anya. A broken bar. I need you. Not for anything you give me, but for everything you are. Your strength, your courage, the way you see the world." A broken bar. I've been wrong about love, but I'm learning. The words, simple yet raw, shattered the last remnants of fear. Anya stepped closer, her hand brushing his. The contact, tentative yet electric, felt like a bridge over the months of distance that had separated them. That night, in the warmth of the firelight and the storm outside, they shared their first real connection, an unspoken promise that the walls between them were crumbling. As spring arrived, their bond deepened. Roman became protective without being possessive, attentive without being overbearing. He learned the small details of her life, her favorite flowers, the books she lingered over, the melodies that made her laugh. Anya, in turn, saw a man of incredible depth and complexity, someone who had built walls to survive but had never stopped longing for connection. Together, they began to build a love that was quiet, steady, and unbreakably not the love of fairy tales, but something far more profound. Yet, love was not without its challenges. The world outside their sanctuary remained as harsh as ever. Business rivals, societal expectations, and lingering whispers of Roman's ruthless reputation reminded them both that the path they were forging was precarious. There were days of tension, misunderstandings, and moments when the coldness of his past seemed to return, threatening to undo the fragile trust they had built. But each time, Anya's patience and insight, combined with Roman's willingness to confront his fears, carried them through. The turning point came one evening in the estate's winter gardens. The flowers were beginning to bloom, tentative and delicate, a symbol of life and renewal. Anya stood among them, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face, and realized that she had fallen in love not just with the idea of Roman, but with the man he was becoming, and the man he allowed her to help shape. Roman appeared beside her, silent, yet his presence was comforting rather than intimidating. He reached out, gently taking her hand. "I don't know what the future holds," he said softly, "but I know that I want to face it with you. Every day, every moment." Anya's heart swelled with a mixture of relief, joy, and awe. Here was the man who had once seemed untouchable, the man who had frightened her with his coldness, offering a hand and a heart open in ways she had never imagined. She squeezed his hand, letting the weight of the past months fall away. "And I will face it with you," she whispered, her voice steady with certainty. In that moment, the estate no longer felt like a gilded cage. It had become a place of discovery, growth, and love. Anna realized that falling in love had not been sudden or dramatic. It had been a journey of patience, observation, and the willingness to see beyond walls and Section 8. Roman, too, had learned that love was not about control or perfection, but about trust, vulnerability, and the courage to let someone in. By the time the garden's flowers were in full bloom, their love had blossomed as well, unexpected, tender, and unshakable. Anya no longer felt trapped, and Roman's cold demeanor had softened into warmth that touched every corner of their lives. Together, they had discovered something far richer than wealth or power, a love that was mutual, resilient, and real. And so, the woman who had once feared a life of cold obligation had found warmth, laughter, and a heart willing to beat in harmony with her own. Roman Volkov, the feared millionaire, had discovered that love was not a weakness, but the ultimate strength, a force that could transform even the coldest of hearts.